What's going on, guys? How you all doing? This is the first episode of Sharing the Mic with JJ podcast. My name is Jason Joseph, of course. If you guys are brand new to my channel, make sure you subscribe, make sure that you like, hit that notification bell icon. This is really cool because we have an awesome guest here today. Each week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be interviewing somebody who's in the sports media business and somebody that comes on, whether they're a YouTuber, whether they do it through broadcasting. It doesn't matter what medium they do it for. We want to get as many people on from the business as possible and just get their stories, get their experiences, and have you guys get to know them a little bit. So without further ado, I got my man Brian Snow here, the founder of Snowman Multimedia. He does the Brian Snow Show. He also does Snowman in the Morning with Cole as well. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing well, my friend. I'm humbled and I'm honored to christen your podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, I just have to tell everybody out there, I really do appreciate you from so many different perspectives, okay? We talk about advice, in the business, we talk about, criticism and that type of thing. These types of conversations, having these deep types of conversations, it's just so important if you want to make it into the sports industry. And I think that a lot of people don't understand how much that truly does mean. And you've helped me out in so many different ways. And obviously, like we'll talk more about it. But I just wanted to say, like, thank you for being able to do that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I've had people help me over the course of my extended broadcast career, and the advice that most, if not all of them, gave me was to find a way to pay it forward. And the
Right.
best way I pay it forward is helping guys like yourself that break into the business and they see me and they get to know me and they ask for advice. And I ask for advice also because
Yep.
in this business, you always want to get better. The
Of
presentation can
course.
get better, your calls can get better, your delivery can get better. Everything can get better, with the right advice, with the right coaching. And sometimes, in my case, you just take an idea and you run with it. So I appreciate you as well, my friend.
It really means a lot. You're definitely more of you, you- you're definitely more of a brother to me. And the more I continue to get to know you, Cole, and the rest of the gang, I just feel like I'm a part of you guys. And you guys have welcomed me in with open arms, and I just can't thank you enough for that. Hey, we share a lot of great memories together, but
Yes,
you
we
know
do.
what? You know what really ties us in to this business? Sports.
Hmm.
So, this is called sharing the mic with JJ. So, I want I want you to talk about like what your favorite sports moment was. I want you to share that with the rest of the audience and just talk about like what really got you in to sports in the first place.
My dad. My dad got me into sports, and watching games with him and my mom and my sister. And the first sport I ever got into um, was football. And somehow Joe Montana made me a 49er for life when he hit Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone, and my whole family was watching it. And my dad went wild. I went wild. That made me a 49er for life, and that made me a sports fan for life. And then the following summer, I'm from Chicago. I went to my first
Oh,
White
wow.
Sox game with
Hmm.
my entire family. And the first the first sport I really got hooked onto was baseball. Crazy enough,
Right.
because I went to a lot of White Sox games in '82.
Yep.
And then the All-Star game was the next year in '83. Fred Lynn hit the historic grand slam.
Yep.
I was hooked, and I was hooked to watching games with my dad, no matter what the sport. For a while, ABC had Monday Night Baseball, so I'd watch it with him until I had to go upstairs and go to bed and get a good night's sleep. And my dad would always tell me have a good sleep, and I'll never forget my dad's final words. My dad's final words to me were, "You stay busy," and it was that day where I made a decision because I had a wedding to go to. But I called my friend Rusty and I said, "You know what? after seeing my dad and the condition he's in, I've got to be in the booth. I got to call a baseball game, and that's what I did. And since my dad got me into sports, and I've heard some great voices over the years, I had a simple philosophy: if they can do it, so can I.
Absolutely. I mean, that's exactly what the philosophy should be. I do want to get into your family background in just a little bit, but while we're on this whole like sharing, while we're on this whole sharing topic, I want I want to ask you. Okay, you've called games. You've called a lot of games before.
Hmm.
Okay, um, do you have like a favorite color commentator that you love sharing the mic with, or just a favorite host that you love sharing the mic with?
Well, my favorite co-host right now is Cole Johnson
Yeah.
because
I figured. I figured
he's
it had to
brought
be Cole.
so much organization uh, to not just my show but my company, and he, in a way, drew a hard line in the sand about being consistent. And that is when I realized I didn't he didn't even ask to be brought aboard. I just knew that I couldn't do it by myself anymore.
Right.
And I had so much weight on my shoulder when I brought him aboard. He wasn't just my first call, he was my only call. And I've shared the mic with so many people over the years. I can't just pin one color commentator that I've had fun with. I've shared the mic with men and women. They've all been fantastic.
Right.
The games and the students really do it for me. And whoever I share the mic with who is there with me, so we have a lot of fun doing it. Doesn't matter who it is. I've covered women's basketball where I've had a woman color commentator. I'd had that for 3 years. Some of the best,
Wow.
some of the best times. And what they taught me, what every color commentator has taught me, was organization, being organized. And you've reinforced that for me. So has my wife Jody. You know, being organized, being prepared. You know, and something my dad always taught me, and it's been said to me so many times by so many other broadcasters and so many of my friends. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And I failed so many
Yep.
times in 28 years, it's not even funny. But the best thing about failing, either before, during, or after a broadcast, the most important broadcast, and I learned this from a very dear friend, the most important broadcast is the next one because you always get a chance to bounce back. The only time in broadcasting and in life that's been taught to me and me teaching to others, the only time that you don't bounce back is when you decide to quit.
Yep. It's funny that you say that because I was taught at NFL Films on. It was during the first week that I worked there. I was talking to one of our switcher operators in the control room, and he said to me, "Jason, I'm going to tell you one thing, and that's this: the day that you stop learning is the day that you're done." And although there were times where I did have downtime at NFL Films, and I had experiences of, having some days where we didn't really have to do as much work,
Right?
I've always felt like my job is to talk to people, help out with the studio, clean up areas, you know, make connections with others, and
Hmm.
also really try to utilize my time wisely
Yeah.
while I was there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So so
Borrow shamelessly. You know,
absolutely.
that's another thing I've been taught. Borrow shamelessly. I mean, uh, man, there are so, and I know you're going to get to this, so we may as well get to it now. There is such a long list of broadcasters whose phrases I borrow from, their inflection, their
Yep.
style, pending the sport. And one of the baseball fellows that I borrowed from shamelessly, I think you know this name, Scott Fransky.
Yes. Yep.
And of
For
course,
sure.
he was with Harry Callis for so many years.
Yep.
The fellow that got me into broadcasting, the voice I heard that put the bug in me that I can do it was Jim Durham,
Yep. I was
longtime
gonna
voice of
get
the
to that.
Chicago Bulls.
Yep.
And whenever I heard Jim Durham and Johnny Kerr, I knew it was game time. Everybody has that pair that they knew whatever the sport it is. Okay, it's time to go. It's time to be in front of the television or have the radio, or you do what we do: mute the television, turn up the radio call. Produce your own simulcast.
Yep.
And I listen. There's so many times the Bulls were on CBS on a national broadcast on a Sunday,
Yep.
and I love Dick Stockton. Don't get it wrong. I love Dick Stockton. I still turned down the radio and turned up Jim Durham's call.
For sure. No,
I still,
absolutely.
I, I still did that.
No, and I think it's really cool because you get a different perspective, and
Hmm.
also the one thing I also really like about it too is that radio. I feel like there's more, even though it's more about the play-by-play announcer. There's still more. Uh, I I feel like I feel like when you're listening to the radio, you focus more on the features, you focus more on just the imagery of the game rather
Hmm.
than on the TV side because of all that, you know? You
You
know what I'm
you
saying?
hit you're hitting the buttons for me because that's the big thing. You are the conduit to the fan who cannot be in front of a television.
Correct.
Okay, you have to paint the picture. You
Yep.
have to you have to paint the picture. That means um, follow the ball or the puck when it comes to hockey. Where is it? I'll use basketball as an analogy. Left of the key, right of the key, top of the circle,
Near
left
side.
baseline, right baseline, low right, low left. All the terms I've
Yep.
learned from listening to Jim Durham call basketball games, I've used to this day,
Yep.
and
Elbow.
it's basic,
Yep.
but it works.
It does. No, absolutely. It definitely does. And look, I want to talk a little bit more about like the whole broadcasting stuff and and that type of thing. But I think that the best way that we should probably get started with this whole thing is just talk a little bit more about your dad. Talk a little bit more about just like like the kid in you when you were like really, really young and you were going to these White Sox games and you were watching all these sports. How how much of an inspiration was that to you just going to all these games?
It's still an inspiration to this day, knowing that my dad got me into it. Um, as he got older, he was unable to go to more games with me, but I would always think of him. And then when I got into broadcasting, I thought of him even more because he inspired me. He, going through grammar school and high school, he would yell at me to keep the noise down, but then he'd come behind me, and I still can hear him saying, "Don't let anybody, not even your mother or me, stop you from chasing your dreams." He stressed that to me every day, especially during the difficult days of things that I was going through in life. I would just hear him saying, "Don't let anyone stop you from not only chasing your dreams, but catching them."
Yep.
Uh, how much of an influence is he to me? I lost him in 2007 to prostate cancer. I have a reminder every day of him. um, I told Jody, my wife, that he would have been thrilled to meet her. He would have been proud of her, and simply put, he would have adored her because Dad wanted me to be happy, no matter who I was with. And when I met Jody, I saw so much of my dad in terms of spirit, in terms of the will, in terms of not giving up on anything. So when we chose a date for our wedding in 2019, the first two dates that popped in my mind were her birthday, June 22nd, and mine, the 21st of July. And I thought neither of those would work, but I wanted my dad's presence. So the third date that popped in my head is the one we went with, and that is June 25th. And he would have been celebrating number 84 if he was alive and able to be with us. But at the same time, he's with us every day. I feel him. I feel his presence every day, even on bad days. He and Jody would pick me up. And when I got the news, well, we got the news that I was in remission from pancreatic cancer, I looked up while I was crying and I said, Dad, that's for you. You couldn't conquer the beast. I did it for you. My mom, too. She was a sports nut just like Dad was. They shared 40 years together before my dad passed away. And Mom used to always tease me about the teams that I loved, and I know that. I know that. What made it fun growing up and what really got me into reading stats and reading about stats and how they impact the game. My
Right.
mom, each week at her job when I was growing up, was in a football pool. So every Thursday, this is hilarious. Every Thursday, she would bring home the picks, the picks of the games for the NFL that week, and the job was to rank the points from 14 to 1. You know, 1 being you have the least amount of confidence in, and 14, of course, having the most confidence in.
Right.
And every week she would come to me with the picks, and she would ask me to help her do the picks. Who am I picking, and how many points am I putting on it? And 90% of the time, I would be right. And then it got to it got to where my dad was bringing home the picks. So dad and mom were stuffing a newspaper in my face every weekend. And they were stuffing a newspaper in my face, and they would go, okay, let's see how you did on the picks this week. And we'd watch the
Right.
games. Some would pan out, some would not. And it was
Always win some and you lose some.
hilarious. It was
That is.
hilarious that both my parents were in a football pool at their job, and they'd ask me to help with their picks. Mom would ask dad to help her, and then she'd ask me for my opinion. That's really how it got started.
That's so
Doing
cool.
doing that. That's really how it got started. When my parents would have me help them make their picks in a football pool, and, and I don't know how I would win most of these games because when you're growing up and you're just getting started,
Right.
you go off of a pure, unadulterated gut feeling.
Oh yeah, for
All
sure.
right, you haven't learned all the teams and their
Right.
tendencies. You just watch and you see great plays made, and
Right.
then when you see the scores, you realize, wait a minute, I picked them. You'd see a
Yeah.
game.
No,
You,
seriously.
you'd see a game where I'll never forget this in the mid '80s. Minnesota was playing at the Vikings were playing at the Eagles, and I thought stupidly picked the Vikings,
Right.
and I saw a score where the Eagles were up 23-0.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, that's one of the big ones that both mom and dad lost.
Was Dick Vermeil coaching?
No, no, but
Oh my gosh.
Jerry Burns was the coach of the Vikings at the time.
Okay.
Jerry Burns was coaching the Vikings. But the NFL today, staple of my childhood, especially with Brent Musburger,
Oh yeah.
he comes back and the first thing I hear him say, well, the Vikings complete the incredible comeback. And I went, what? They beat
Wow.
Philadelphia 28-23,
Yep.
and I hear Brent say 28 fourth quarter points, and we're all looking and going, "What?"
Yep. Yep. I
When
had
you get started, you go off of a pure, unadulterated gut feeling.
of course.
You go off of a feeling because you're just growing up. You're just getting into the game. You're just getting into the sport. You're just learning about the teams and the coaches and the offenses and everything.
Sure. Yeah, no.
Somehow my gut feeling became the source for not only my parents doing a pool, but my aunts would do a pool. My teachers in high school would be in would be in a pool, and to say that for football that my reputation of being right on most of my picks preceded me would be an understatement. But that's how it started for me with my parents.
Wow.
Asking me to do their picks for them because they don't know what's going on, and I'm the stat rat. I'm
Of
the
course.
sports nerd
Right.
in the family, and my wife calls me such. She tells me all the time, "Look, I'm not as big a sports nerd as you, but I support what you do 100%," which makes me blush. And well, she does, man. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said,
I'm
which makes
sure.
me blush. And
We'll talk
I've
about
always been
Jody.
a I've
We'll talk
always
about
been a
Jody.
sports nerd.
Yeah.
I've always been a sports nerd. That's how I got. That's how it got started for me.
So I want to flash forward. Okay.
All
So
right.
you know, you go to your first broadcasting booth. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when when did that occur? At like what time of your life did that happen? Just from visiting, and how did you feel in that moment when you were in the booth with the announcers and with the other people that were behind the scenes, if you will?
Oh man, the first game I ever called was 1995 at Chicago State University when my friend Kevin had checked out a camera because he was going to film the basketball game that was playing that night with Northern Illinois and Chicago State. And I looked at Kevin, and somehow, you ever see something and you just get a wild idea?
Oh, for sure. That happens to me all the time.
I said, Kevin, can you check out a microphone with that camera? And Kevin gave me this evil smile. He was like, "You're up to something." I said, I just want to try something. Maybe it'll enhance your class project." And he said, "All right, let's go for it." So we get the microphone, and we go to the arena, and lo and behold, Craig Hodges, NBA sharpshooter,
Yep.
two-time champion, was the coach of Chicago State. So we went up on the track. We got permission to tape, and lo and behold, that was my first game, and I was like pleasantly numb because it felt natural.
Huh.
Didn't
Cool.
realize at the time I had created a monster
Yeah.
because
Of course.
when you do, and you know this, when you do that first one, you become greedy. You want more.
Oh, for sure.
You want to do that headset of yours, you want to throw it on again and again and again and again and again. I'll tell you the funniest thing about that game. TJ Lux was the center for Northern Illinois at the time. Um, I spat out during our brief, like 2 minute post game shows. Of course, now the minimum is on radio or television is 15 minutes for a post game. That TJ Lux had 26 points and 14 rebounds. And we wrapped up, and Kevin looked at me and he goes, "There's no way you could calculate that in your head because the only piece of paper I had with me was rosters.
Yep.
That's it." Went downstairs and I met Bill Baker, the fabulous longtime voice of the Northern Illinois Huskies and my good friend. I said, "Bill, can we borrow that stat sheet for a minute? We need to take a look at something." Looked at TJ Lux, 26 points, 14 rebounds.
Wow.
I looked at Kevin and he looked at me and he goes, "You were calculating something somewhere in your head."
Yep.
Kevin, I don't know. Kevin's cracking up at this point. Bill's cracking up at this point. the folks around us were going, "How do you do that?" And everybody's looking at me, and I'm going, "I don't know. It's my first broadcast. I don't know." And then I did a football game. I was covering Michigan City in 2018, and my wife was my in booth producer. And I asked her, "Can you take stats for me for a game?" And she said, "Sure, as long as you teach me what to do." By the second quarter, there was a fellow named Lyric McFerrin, one of my favorites to watch.
Hmm.
Fellow named Lyric McFerrin who was just gobbling up the yards. By the third quarter, midway through the third quarter, I swear to you, I looked at my wife's sheet and I didn't see the running total because I was going too fast
Right.
for her
Yep.
to catch up, and I tried to repeat the number of yards that he gained or lost or who made the play or whatever. Somehow I spit out that Lyric McFerrin had 17 carries for 228 yards and 4 touchdowns.
That's crazy.
I turned to Jody and she had this look.
One of those
She just
creepy
had
looks.
this look
Yeah.
of how.
Yep.
I went to a break. I took a drink of water, and she just had this look of how. Like, how what? She says, "I don't have to write anything down. You already got it in your head."
I wish
I
I
got
could do
the
that.
official total from the coach and confirmed it with the newspaper. I missed this total by 3 yards.
Wow.
I said 248. He wound up with 251.
Wow. That's impressive. And he didn't have to like write it down like
No,
as you're talking nothing. It's just
that's the trick.
it's just
I don't know
photographic
how I've been able
memory.
to do this most of my life. It just pops into my head and the running total starts. Now, I've had games where I've been completely off. Okay, I've had games where I've been completely off, but that one, but those two I just gave you, I don't know how it happens. It just happens.
Speaking of like just happens. Okay, so I wanted to ask you. I I just have to tell you, like, you are one of the most well educated broadcasters and sports media members that I know. And I
Oh, thank
truly,
you.
like, from the bottom of my heart, absolutely mean that.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I think that a
Thank you.
lot of people get this misconception that just because you work for a big network like ESPN or Fox or NFL Network, that those people that work there are great utility players. Like, they're very versatile.
Mhm.
That's not always the case.
No, it's
And
not.
you, with the way that you're able to cover so many different sports, with your vocabulary that you have, I understand that a lot of it does come from experience, but
Mhm.
also it really just comes down to desire. But how do you do it? I had to
I
ask
better take
you.
a sip of water for this one.
I had to throw
Well,
that out there.
I've listened to a lot of broadcasters over the course of some 40 years, and terms just stick with me. And when I did my first basketball game, I recalled Jim Durham's terminology, and I use it to this day. And when I do football, the fellow I lean on the most is Wayne Larrabee. And when I do hockey, I lean on Pat Foley or John Weideman. With baseball, there's a cadre of people I listen to, Scott Fransky included. But the person I lean on the most is John Rooney, who was with the White Sox for 18 years. I learned all the terms from them, and just when I think I have forgotten what to do and how to do it, all I see is the field, and I have the headset on, and all of a sudden everything just kicks in.
Yep.
I mean, it's I have a simple philosophy. Think of someone who's blind. How do you paint the picture for them?
That's exactly mine too.
That's the simplest way I can answer your question.
Yep.
Greg Papa, who's the voice of the 49ers, said, I think of a person who's sightless and how I take them on this roller coaster ride of a football game. I do it for all sports. I want to deliver the best call that I can for someone who is sightless or someone who can't watch the game physically because they're in another room, or as I said, because they're sightless or they're in their car. I want to deliver. And even when they do have the video in front of them, some of these announcers, just lean on the TV style. Not me. I lean on the sign. I've been a simulcast style broadcaster thanks to folks like Jim Durham and Hot Rod Hundley for a long time for the Utah Jazz, and Kevin Calabro for a long time with the Seattle Supersonics,
John
and
Miller.
so many others.
Yeah.
I lean on them. I do it simulcast style. I've done it my entire career, which is close to spanning 30 years. Besides John Rooney, one of the multi-sport voices I leaned on was Jack Buck.
Good one.
Because for
Very good
years,
one.
Jack Buck did Monday Night Football.
Yep.
When it was on CBS radio, he did Monday Night Football. And plus, of course, he was the longtime voice of the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yep.
That's how. So many years of listening. And to this day, I'm still a sports radio rat. I listen to radio play-by-play as much as I can and pick up as much terminology as I can. Everything evolves. Everything evolves, and I want to be sure that I'm up with the times, that I'm up on game, and give my absolute best for everybody that's involved. But what I would do at home is practice.
Yep.
My mom got a tape recorder. A Walkman that had the tape player and the tape recorder, and my mom got it, and I got a hold of it.
Yeah.
I got a hold of it to the point where one of my Christmas presents was a stereo that had a tape recorder.
Oh, gosh.
But I ran out of tapes.
Oh, of course.
I ran out of tapes.
Oh, gosh.
And in no uncertain terms, my mother told me I cannot borrow any of her tapes to record any more Bulls games. Because all my tapes were full of Bulls games.
Do you still have those tapes?
Huh?
Do you still have those tapes?
I wish I did.
Oh, my gosh.
I wish I did.
I
have the memories, though.
Yeah.
I had the memories are tape enough for me. But you know what my dad did? My dad pulled a fast one on my mother and me. Because he yelled at me not to use my mother's cassette tapes. I'm like, doggone it. And he pointed me to my room, and I went in my room, and I had my head hanging down. And then I looked behind me, and my dad had this wicked smile on his face. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He reached behind him, and he pulls out this brick of cassette tapes. This big. 15 of them. He puts them on my desk, and he goes, use those. And he walks out.
Wow.
What?
What an awesome dad.
He put them on my desk and walked out. Now it's gone from tapes. Now it's gone to CDs, and then micro cassette recorders, and now we're on to digital recording. I mean, most of my life, 3/4 of my life, I can tell you, I was recording something and working on my voice and working on my inflection and working on using different words. The strangest thing I can tell you, what got me I can't believe I can't believe I'm gonna say this aloud, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it aloud. You know what got me into broadcasting? What? The Price is Right.
Yep.
Bob Barker himself.
Yep.
Now, game shows tied me into for some crazy reason. Game shows tied me into sports.
Well, I mean, the game show hosts are sort of like the sports anchors,
yes,
or just like like the leaders of the pack, if you will. So,
yep.
they're the conductors, so it makes a lot of sense. They're on their personalities, and game show, of course, like the whole goal is just to like have fun
Yep.
and that type of thing. And if people win money, the feeling's
Bonus.
good.
Bonus. It
Exactly.
was a bonus. If they
Yep.
won something, it was a bonus.
Yep. Exactly. So that, that's funny. That's actually really funny. I think that that's so cool.
Listen,
Um.
I'll tell you this one.
Yeah. Go for it.
My parents had a Bissell sweeper with the long pole,
What's that?
the a carpet sweeper,
Okay.
kind of like a vacuum.
Right. Okay.
And I got a plastic bowling set for Christmas. One of my favorite game shows was the Joker's Wild with
Yeah.
that one armed bandit.
Yep.
So what do?
They brought that back.
From I take the ball from the bowling set. I find some black tape that I wasn't supposed to lay my hands on. I laid
Oh
my hands
God.
on it anyway, and I tape the ball to the sweeper
Of course you did. Of
while
course.
watching. I did this while watching the Joker's Wild. So whenever someone got to the bonus game, I was ready to spin the wheels with
Of course you did. I can literally picture everything right now. Everything that you're saying.
because I would do an impression of the sound of the wheels spinning for the bonus game. And now come me being 51, now I have this.
Oh
And
my
it
gosh.
ignites all the memories.
That's so funny. Wow. I'm speechless. I'm speechless.
Did I get in trouble for it? You better believe I did.
Was it worth it though?
Yes,
Of course.
because I kept finding the doggone thing. I kept finding
That's so funny.
to the point where I would make the one armed bandit out of a carpet sweeper. My dad had these special pants hangers for his pants. I'd rip them apart, turn them into microphones using yarn from my mother's room, from my mother's sewing station.
Right.
Everything I saw was a microphone. It was some sort of microphone, and it was tied into a game show or to a sportscast. Everything was a microphone.
That's so funny. Wow.
everything, everything was a microphone. And then I wound up getting a microphone in high school, a real live microphone.
Oh my gosh. That is so funny. Before I let you go, I do want to talk a little bit, and well, I want to give you the floor and have you talk a little bit about the Snowman Stadium tour, okay? Because I think that it's so important for everybody that's out there to just try to understand what that hashtag means. And I want to make sure that I give you center stage about that because I think it's awesome, but I want you to explain what that is.
Well, this is an idea that was spurred on by my wife. Um, we didn't know if I was going to make it or not, especially after we were given a death sentence by Duke University Cancer Center, who basically told us 2 years ago, go home and get your affairs in order. And my wife wasn't having it. God bless you, Jody K. And she said to me, I don't know how long you'll be here, but I want you to see every stadium that you can lay your eyes on. So I decided to take it a step further, and I want to see not only see the stadium, but see the tour, do a tour of the said stadium, but see a game within the stadium.
Right.
Tom Grossi, who's one of my favorite YouTubers to watch, did 30 and 30 and raised $500,000 for St. Jude. And this is not me trying to top him or anything. I just thought to myself, if he can do that for St. Jude, then I can do it for cancer research and for the Hamlin Foundation and for my family.
Yeah.
I am deadly serious about doing this tour and surprising my wife with a few places of her own that she wants to visit. And I want to meet some of my fans from across the country. I want to build this fan base for you and for me and for everybody that latches onto this. Even to the point where Cole has now done a logo for me for the Snowman Stadium tour. He's done a logo for me. And this is me getting to every stadium and arena that I can lay my eyes on and sit in and cover a game there. Collect as many press passes as I can, or as many ticket stubs as I can, and meet some people and get them subscribe to the channel while I'm at it. It's a and there's a threefold reason. One of my favorite foundations is the Jimmy V Foundation for Cancer Research. And being a survivor, and me knowing a couple of survivors, Jimmy V's message is clear. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. My wife didn't give up on me, and I'm not going to give up on her. After she blatantly told me, I feel like you've quit, that turned the light on for me. And now I'm going to put a fundraiser out there to bring in some money for some basics so we can launch this stadium tour. And whatever money we raise on the tour will be split three ways between my family, the Damar Hamlin Foundation, and the Foundation for Cancer Research.
When I first thought about doing this podcast, okay, I've been reaching out to people, but I thought, you know what, for the very first episode that I do, there's nobody else that I would reach out to than Brian, because Brian has really just been there for me. He found my channel. He's been reaching out to me. He's been very open, and he is always willing to help. And as soon as he opened up to me, I had to open up to you too. And I thought, this is a really great way for me to get better at interviewing. And of course, I'm gonna look back at the tape and I'm gonna say to myself, well, I could be doing this better. Well, I could be doing this better. But I thought I just knew that you were the perfect candidate just to come on here, and I'm so happy and honored that you said yes. And I just want to say, I don't even think a thank you does it justice, but I want to express my gratitude from the bottom of my heart and just, give you a hug and just thank you.
Well, the honor and the pleasure is all mine, my friend, to christen your podcast and just have a great conversation with you, and to continue to learn from you, and have you continue to learn from me, and we help each other, and that's what a brotherhood and a friendship is all about. So I thank you from the bottom of my soul. I am humbled and I'm honored to christen your podcast.
Thank you so much. Guys, make sure that you go follow Snowman Multimedia on all the social media platforms that are out there, including YouTube as well. Does an awesome job with his channel. And guys, that's going to wrap things up here for our very first episode of Sharing the Mic with JJ. All right, we'll be back on next Friday. Don't worry about that. But I'll see you all on the next one. Love you all.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Advertising Network for great more content like this one.